There's Babette, yeah, and I thought Leslie is also here from Albuquerque. Is that where she's from? Albuquerque, yeah, right. And then we have Shu Ping from Wisconsin, and Joy. Joy is originally from Honolulu, and she's here now. Yeah, and Ungo is, I think he's in Washington, Seattle. All right, here we go. Good morning. See here, I'm going to change the view for us here. Close this. Okay, got it. Yeah, okay, got it, thank you. Well, it's really, it's hard to talk right now. Thank you all for coming today here in person and online. I am so, my heart is so full right now because we had a couple of intense days of ceremony. My hula ceremony, right, hula. My 8 hula students have been practicing hard since early April. Every week we met, initially 2 hours in addition to the Wednesday 2-hour class. And then a couple of months into it, I said, you know what, we're gonna have to meet 3 hours a week. Plus, if you can all come to that 2-hour Wednesday class, you need to come. And so they did. They could only miss 3 Sunday classes. You know, it's, they've been practicing for a while, but we were intensely practicing because they needed to learn, really learn well in their body and mind and spirit, this Hawaiian cultural practice that I love. And it's called hula. It's the Hawaiian dance, but hula is, according to our hula great-great-great-grandmother in our lineage, Maiki Ayu Lake, she said, hula is the art of Hawaiian dance expressed in everything that we see, hear, taste, touch, and feel. So in essence, hula is life, which is exactly what we say in Zen. Zen is life. So for me, the weaving of these 2 paths, while difficult to really articulate, I was living. I tried to articulate it a couple of times in talks, and I don't think I was really successful. And then, of course, my Lapa'au path that I started studying, Lapa'au, which is the practice of healing, Hawaiian traditional healing with the plants. But 90, what is it? He said 80% was spiritual in terms of healing and 20% plants, the plants. And Henry Awai, we fondly called Papa Henry, he knew 5,000 native plants and the use of them in terms of healing. They were the traditional doctors of Hawaii. So Haunani represents that lineage, the Kako'omua, Papa's main assistant on the island of Hawaii, where I'm from, where we met. was here to be my kahu, my spiritual advisor, kind of and we did a beautiful blessing. She did a beautiful blessing of this whole building, which you might notice there might be a little difference, because when we sit always, we're blessing it in one way. And there is a Hawaiian way of doing the blessing. So the week before was perfect because we had a 7-day silent meditation retreat, and part of the retreat, part of the practice is samu. It is mindful work. And so Zen students cleaned this building, basement, this floor, and upstairs beautifully, and the backyard, and the little front yard that we have. That's all important in ceremony. Cleaning, purification before you do an important event, important ceremony. And in addition, Alva, my Kumu sister, who I met in 1988 when I began studying hula with our Kumu hula, Michael Pili Pang, has been a support for me, a deep, deep support for my hula practice, especially during this, what we call, it was an intensive hula practice to prepare for uniki, which is a graduation, getting to a level of what we call olapa, which means dancer. And olapa is actually also the name of a beautiful tree that when the wind blows the leaves, they shimmer, kind of like quaking aspens here, so that they're dancing. So the dancers are called, that level is called olapa dancers. So with that level, of course, comes more responsibility and commitment to this practice of hula, this cultural practice of hula. So Alva, we've been meeting, I don't know, at least for 2 months over Zoom, and she's been observing, right? She and another Kumu hula sister, Wendy Pa'ahana Rorig from the Big Island of Hawaii, they've been watching on Sundays and giving me feedback, which is good because it's been 24 years since I graduated as a Kumu hula, and 30 years since I graduated, we graduated as Olapa, 30 years. Oh, 30, Olapa, 30, 24 for Kumu hula. It took, 12 years for me to get to Kumu hula. And let me tell you, we had a very strict, old school teacher, which I'm very grateful for, who we love, even though we get scolded a lot. I get scolded a lot, I should say. And so this is my first uniki. Alva has done 6 already. So her, remember, the way I participated in uniki was as a student. I didn't know all the background detail that is involved, as well as it being a Hawaiian cultural practice. I was raised in Hawaii, but Japanese American culture mostly. But thank good, that's why I said, I need to call in the experts here for support. Haunani was raised culturally in Alva also. They both have Hawaiian parents. And so I said, I need to, this is a Hawaiian cultural practice that I'm passing on. I need that expertise. I was like so overwhelmed. I went to see my teacher. How many months ago was that? I don't know, 2 months, 3 months. No, it was a little later. Oh, end of March. Anyway, I went to see him. It was end of May. I said, I need help. Well, after I saw him, I had some information, but I was totally overwhelmed because I realized that I didn't know a lot of the Hawaiian cultural, just little things you do, you know, like which way do you sleep? Which way does your head point when you sleep? And so all the graduates had to do this in this ceremony, many little details like that. And so I would like to, let's begin first with the spiritual kind of foundation here. So I'm going to begin with Haunani. Whatever you want to say, Haunani, about that. I did, on Haunani's request, get 3 green Hawaiian bamboo plants to put at the entrances. And so she can tell us, maybe start there and, you know, whatever.
So I'm gonna actually start a little different place, okay? First, I'd like to make a greeting and an invitation, so, excuse me, okay? Yeah, to a new yo talano, talania me ta ho new, uhimai lo aloha. Mai tupu vai, me taia tō e ai. Hemulele o I aloha, aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. As part of our tradition in Lapa'au, and I'm sure in many ways yours, in your own traditions, you will find similar places. I'm going to talk 3 words. One is ho'omalie. Ho'omalie is to quiet yourself, put other things away, and be present and quiet. Move gently, move slowly. Ho'omalu. Ho'omalu is to be one with each other. It's a calling of unity that we all share together. And at the end, I'll say mahalo. And mahalo is thank you, but it's also appreciation for all your efforts to bring us in unity together. And we'll do this, other than me calling, is silent. Okay? Okay. Ho'omalie. Ho'omalu. Mahalo. Thank you, everyone. I know that as Zen followers, this is very much a common practice for you all, but maybe have different ways and names, but it's still a coming together and being at peace with yourself and with each other. So mahalo for sharing, because she's talking culture as well as what is our practice. So this is in our Lapa'au practice. However, our traditions, I should actually say, there are different Lapa'au traditions, so it's not always the same with everyone. That's an important thing when you're talking about culture, especially Hawaiian culture, because everyone has their own way of approaching what is there before them and how we prepare for the future, take care of ourselves now, bring our knowledges from the past forward, so we can care with our children, our keiki, so they're ready to deal with the changes of the world, which is, as you know, always constant regardless of the generation you're in. So we want to make sure our children are well prepared. All right, so I wanted to start with that foundation, and then I think I'll introduce myself a little bit so you know who I am, or at least I'm actually here to support June. And then she says, okay, I have to out you. She says, oh, by the way, can you stay and give a talk? And I'm thinking, give a talk? Sure. So in my own arena, I do a fair amount of talking. Babette and Leslie, who is also Lapa'au, are online, so they can testify to that. But in these arenas, no. So I was raised in very much a Hawaiian fashion, and it's not common today. We had a village that was kind of a semicircle village, and my father and my uncle lived across from each other, and they were like the guards of the village, though they were low-key guards, but they were very attentive. And then in the middle, there was like a halau building, which is an open-air building, at least part of it, and a roof. Now, in our traditions, we weaved and took care of all those, but this was post World War II, so this was leftover military things, so it was all Quonset hut. So I don't know if you're familiar with Quonset huts, but if you're familiar with either airplane hangars or military yourselves in some past, then you will be familiar with that. But those are still buildings. And it was very hot there because those things are not cool. But that's okay, it was open air. And next to it was an imu, which is an underground oven that we would dig up, and it's like a hole of the ground to cook. And I'm sure you're familiar with the luau's that people talk about. Okay, so we don't really have luau. There's a very specific purpose, but the words are being used in many different forms today than they were. But it was always there, and the rocks that were brought to be able to handle the heat of the wood and to cook the pig appropriately was left. So there's this, because we don't need open holes. And I think it's important when we teach or share a bit of cultural practice is that what open holes symbolize means you're leaving spaces of any kind of things can't enter. So you don't leave a hole. You put something in it to let everyone know that it's not empty. And it keeps you safe so children don't go in, but it's also a piece of knowledge, but it's taught without saying. And a lot of Hawaiian culture is taught that way. And then my grandfather, when I was about 5 years old, had me work on him. I remember a 5-year-old girl in little hands. And afterwards, he looked at me in the eye and told me that my work was to do healing. 5 years old. I remember it because it's my grandfather who I adored, but I don't know what that meant, of course. But whatever he saw, it was a memory he was letting me know that is what he felt was best for me. So how do you bring that forward years later? I can't say that I contemplated it at all. I was 5 years old, but that is very much a traditional thing, whether you come before the elder or you're taken to a special elder to see if your child can learn those practices. Today, sometimes it's done, sometimes not. A lot of times we elect, oh, I'm going to follow this, I'm going to follow that, but not often in those days. Even in my time, which is, I'm not that old, but plenty old, but not going, I'm going back far, right? Long time. So that process was I was about 17, finishing high school, and I wanted to enter Lapa'au. I don't think even most of you know this. I'm not sure how much I have shared it. Only my teacher is the one who knows the history. I haven't actually spoken this very much out. And so, and then she told me, you're recording it? Okay, but it's okay. And so that practice of having your elder choose, and then you get to be a teenager, and then all of this is coming to you, and you're wondering, what do I do? Where do I go next? What's my next path? So I brought not just that memory, but all the different things I've been learning, and I learned a lot from my father. He was a teacher of many, I wouldn't call him healing practices. It's more about, there's a tradition of how to approach a problem with the leg, correct a children's body stance, fix injuries, things of that sort. And so I learned those things just as living, part of everyday living. Then I went to my grand aunt, who actually did a form of one of our healing arts, and I asked her, could I learn? And she said, no. I said, what? You must wait. And so I was very disappointed. And she said, go learn the Western medicine way. I said, why do I need to do that? And it says, well, you can understand. And once you understand how they approach health, when people come to you later, when you're ready to learn, or your teacher will arrive, she explained, my teacher, you will understand both. So you will understand the person's coming to you. Of course, 17, I'm just going, okay. And so I went to nursing training. So that's a background that I have. And I just went into a lot of fields, but basically, high level critical care, machines everywhere. This is like night and day from my culture, and wondering often, how do I deal with those two? And it was my upbringing and the cultural aspects of that was taught on a daily way of living, not just that, this is the way. It was more of, my father rarely spoke. This was the language. And you had to read that language right away, otherwise you're in trouble. So, yes. So not a lot of spoken language, but always inferred through action and sharing, and we always worked. We worked, and today they call it mindful work, but we just helped with everything. We just participated in everything. Children rarely did not participate. There were things children should not be near because it's unsafe, both spiritually and physically, but the majority of time we assisted with everything. So it's a lot of indirect knowledge. So that staple, that foundation, is what enables me to adjust to both the Western practice. And then at that high school, that time when I went to see my grandaunt, she told me, your teacher is a man. He lives on the Big Island. That when it's time, you will be called. So I was living in Saudi Arabia at the time, 30 years ago, and I received a call from my grandfather. My grandfather had already passed away, and he came with what we had called an aumakua, which is a guardian. And in our tradition of our family, and also again, as I mentioned earlier, our family, the Hawaiian families are all very different and they have very different traditions. So what is okay in one may not be okay in another. Even areas that you come from. So it's very important when somebody says, well, Hawaiians do this, Hawaiians do that, just be aware, not necessarily, yeah. And I think that's really important with any culture, that there are foundational things we all share. There are certainly historics that we all share, but the traditional practices are not always the same wherever you go. So I was living there, I got the call, and I came back to Hawaii, and I saw this little notice in the town I was living, which is in Waimea. I don't know if you know that area, on the Big Island. And I said, oh, a workshop by our teacher. And I go, oh, okay. And I go, I sign up, I sit down, and he comes out from the back, and he walks up, and all he did was look at us, and I went, oh, that's the teacher that I was called home for, that my great aunt told me about, that would be said, and what my grandfather told me will come. And all that has led to this path. Most of the time, almost nearly all the time, I don't share all this. I'm sharing it with you folks because this lady creates sacred space. And we can all be together. And I trust that. So, and then I saw the use of this space to honor and share many people from all over, and their hearts are so genuinely learning and sharing and beloved. I said, how can I not be in a good space? So that's one reason I'm sharing most of this with you folks today. And also to understand that when we enter Lapa'au, we all come with different traditions. There were many people who are not Hawaiian that were, being trained. So how do they deal with that when they have to learn the culture in the process of what we are doing? And we had a teacher, that kind of teacher, yeah, and that's it. Go get plants. Go get plants. This is the plant. Okay, sometimes don't even show you the plant, just tell you about the plant. And then, okay, bring it back next class. What does it look like? Where do we go? Well, it's not that he was giving an impossible task. It's more about measuring how do you approach the task. It's a way of learning about the word for us, for student, or in this case, we're more apprentices in training, is to learn about them. It helps you understand them more, how to reach them better. So even though we are going, wow, does that plant, you think that's the plant? I think that's the plant, and we weren't all horticulturalists, we don't have all that background. So we came from all forms of life also. And so we bring that into the center, and our work took many years to learn, but the majority of it was to ensure that we could learn. And I think that's really important. If you don't know how to listen well, then you can only hear what you choose to hear. So it was helping us learn how to hear without ears. And that's one aspect. So I'm going to talk to June, or ask June to give us these 5 guiding expectations that our teacher had of us to be apprentices. And yet they have become lifelong learning. I wouldn't call them mantras, but it's what we follow and we use to explore and determine and to distinguish what we should and should do. So June, I'm trying to get used to this. This is not familiar to me.
Mahalo. You did so good. Mahalo, my kailoa. I know, okay. Yeah, so, right. So, Papa Henry said, these are the 5 expectations I have of my haumana, my students. And I don't know, maybe it was Babette who wrote it on the wall, on the flip chart. He said, number 1, not necessarily that they were in that order to practice, but these were the 5. Not one was better than the other. Ho'olohe, to listen. Ho'oma kaukau, to be prepared. Ho'omaikai, to respect all. Ho'olauna itamea maikai, to sacrifice. And ho'omanavanui, to be patient. He didn't give any explanation. That was it. These are the 5 expectations that I have of you. Okay.
So over the years, it's been quite a number of years, we've lived through many things, and I can certainly talk about them more later, but it's that our definitions changed over time. They became more broader and more understanding. And it isn't just words, it's taking the words apart so that you see each of the roots and where that stems from. So you have layers and layers of understanding. We call it peeling the onion. I don't know if you folks are familiar with that phrase, but it's to keep pulling back the layers to get to the core, whether you do it individually or as a group. We had to do both. So even though we worked together as a group, each of us had to go through all of these steps of learning. Well, the majority of that training was those things. Can we learn? Once we showed that, yes, we could learn and be an apprentice, that's when he had what we'd call, well, he called it graduation for us, but it wasn't really. It was announcing to the community, which is very cultural way of doing things, family and community, these people are my students, meaning I take responsibility for their learning and the results. At the end of their learning, if they pass, they become responsible for themselves. But during that process, I'm responsible. That's a very important thing when you're agreeing to work with an apprentice. As being Haumana, we didn't necessarily know that or understand that, but the more involved we got in the learning, that became more apparent. So now I'll go back to the ohe, or at least include the ohe. When it isn't just blessing, it is offering protection for many things, and it's to be at our entrances and exits. And this particular ohe is used by our tradition. As mentioned earlier, all of our traditions do not necessarily follow the same, but this particular ohe is a kind that if you see someone else, especially in the Pacific Islands, who come in our cultural histories, like Samoa, Tonga, Vanuatu, all those different Tahiti, if they have this in their practice, we are from the same lineage. And that's it's like a knowledge to understand. This goes back 2,000 years. And so it's like you can recognize a brethren, even though you've never met them and they don't know who you are. It's because of that lineage. The importance of that is that we understand what their foundations are without having to I wouldn't say read, but to to help them learn, to help them understand. There's not a lot of space that needs to be accomplished first to get them there, so that we could communicate to each other. Other times you have to start where people are at and say, where are you? And then listen to them very well, and then be able to talk with them that way. So that you can listen and they can hear, and they can listen and understand. So the point of the ohe, not only to be there, but the shape of it and everything, I really can't share that with you folks, but it serves as a protection for anything to come in and out, and it continues to move anything that gets generated that shouldn't be here, also out. So out, and actually not casted. This is uplifted so that it could be clarified and released. Casting away, sometimes that means it's still being removed versus transformed, which is a big difference. So that answers your ohe question. Okay. So I'm going to stop because you have other things to, and we can.
So, Alva, my dear friend, we live close to each other in Waimea. When we lived in Waimea, the uplands, 3,000 feet elevation on Hawaii Island, with the beautiful mountain, majestic Mauna Kea. We're just there, just kind of sitting with us. So Alva, anything you want to share about the last couple days, or anything really?
O nauna I te hala me ka lehua, e hale lehua, no iana ka noe. E kauno ia, e ano ine, e ali ane, hoi o ka hiki mai. A hiki mai no oko, a hiki puno me ke aloha. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. Good morning. I'm Alva, Kaipoleimanu, Kamalani, born and raised on the island of Oahu. And in 1981, my daughter says, Mom, let's move to the Big Island. Okay. Quit my job, no job, moved to the Big Island, and I've been there ever since, except for 1 year. But I was raised in the Western culture, and it really, I was troubled because it didn't match everything else I saw around me. My maternal grandparents worked at Polynesian Cultural Center, very Mormon, but still in the Polynesian Cultural Center, practicing a lot of the Hawaiian ways. My grandfather pounded poi. My grandfather would stand by the side of the lake that ran through the cultural center, and he would call the fish. And I thought, that's kind of cool, because you stand there and all the fish would start coming. And then he'd feed them, and then they'd all go away. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then I had a maternal uncle who would go, not fishing, he would go get the fish and bring it home for dinner. I thought that was pretty cool. My grandfather would give me, when I fell down, he would give me all kinds of stuff. If I was sick, it was kukui sap on the mouth, and I'm like, no, because it tastes really bad. If I fell down and had some kind of trauma that way, he'd give me warm salt water to drink, and that was really bad too. But I found out later that it really did help me heal. So there were all these different kinds of examples of healing that didn't make sense in the Western teachings I was learning in school. I met Haunani at commemorative schools. So we're actually classmates because we graduated at the same time. So we graduated from school, we graduated from Halal. That's how I met these two. But it wasn't until much later, I observed a lot of stuff happening in my family. They told stories of, major healing and like, yeah, right. Or major happenings with Aumakua, and go, yeah, okay. It was a belief, but I mean, I felt it, but I thought, nah, it doesn't happen. And my, so actually I am related to Papa Henry. So and I knew about Papa Henry and all of his healing that way, and I'm thinking, okay, that's really cool, because I've seen him heal. But the true impact of how Hawaiian healing works was my father was a motorcycle police officer, and he would teach his riders how to ride properly, and especially how to fall properly, because those Harleys are a little bit heavy, but should you fall, how to fly the bike so that you don't get hurt. Well, he was showing them what not to do, and that's what he did, and he broke his leg. His leg was broken. They took him to the hospital, x-rayed him, and they said, we cannot set your leg because it's too swollen. So come back, I think in 3 days. So he called his father, who happened to be on the Big Island with his brother in Kohala, and said, Dad, I broke my leg. And so my grandfather, who was considered La'au Kahea, said, okay, don't wash your leg for 3 days. And that was all. So my father went back to set it. And when they re-x-rayed it, it had already set and was well on its way to healing. And I went, okay, something's up here, but I still didn't understand it. I mean, I understood it deeply, but my brain was saying no. And so finally, in 1986, 86, I had an opportunity to come to California to be a nanny in Beverly Hills, which is really cool. And I got to see a lot of things that I would not have learned dealing with people who have so much. And coming from a family that I didn't think we needed anything, we're happy, but to see how the differences are, and I actually felt happier than I saw them to be. So I thought, okay, we're good. And I came home after a year because I felt that child was too close to me, and I needed him to be close to his mother, not me. And so I came home and decided to, well, maybe I should learn some culture and, maybe do hula as exercise. Okay. And at work, there was a bulletin board with this little poster, pull off the number, with Michael Pilipang on it. Come join us in hula. I went, okay. So I joined the class, and I go, okay, I think I can do this. I was 36, I think, at the time. Old, very old. And that was in June. And in August, he said, well, I want you to be or maybe in July, I want you to come to another class. And in August, he said, okay, I want you to be ready for a performance in October. No. Yeah. October. So my first performance was at Volcano at the Pahula in Volcano. And I said, well, this is pretty cool, because I'm dancing to the pit of Kilauea. And it was like, this is nice, I like this. And I got to meet some of his elders, the people that helped his growth in hula. And they shared stories, and the amazing part was I knew some of them because they knew my mother, who taught Michael's teacher how to ride a horse for a parade, because we had horses in a valley, and so she was going to be the Pa'u queen, and she needed to be very stable on a horse and how to handle the horse, and so my mother taught her. So she had hula in exchange for teaching the horse riding. And that's how my mom knew a lot of the aunties. And so they remembered me. I was a little kid running around down the river, and they saw me, and they go, you're Maud's daughter. Yeah. Oh, how's your mom? And I'm like, who is this? And so I learned later how they were connected. And And then we did a competition in June the following year. So I'm 1 year into hula, and now we're doing a competition. And I was so nervous, I thought I was going to faint, which would be not pretty for me to faint on the floor. But as we walked out onto the stage, I'm remembering to breathe. And then we were doing this Papahehi number, which June has actually taught her students. I was impressed. We walked onto the stage, the lights came on, and my body said yes. And it went, no. But it was like a total, like, this is what we're doing. So from that point, everything else started to make sense, like why my grandparents did not teach me the Hawaiian way, and why it was now okay for me to delve into it. And hula was a very safe place to do it from, because they have cultural practices that are now considered safe, that nobody's going to. It was like if you practice something and somebody did not approve of it, they would, send you like negative energy. So that's what my grandparents were protecting me from, that I was not ready to handle that. But through hula, it became like a nice, safe place to start learning and start expanding my Hawaiian culture. So with all the experience we had in hula, I began to rely more and more and see how the past and what I observed in the past actually fit everyday life, and how it's really important to be observant, because you don't have to fix the world, just, fix what you can within yourself, because then it helps in other ways. And so, so hula actually taught me my voice, which I don't like the sound of my voice. I know it's terrible. And then they made me chant, and no, because I don't, to me it sounds, it doesn't sound good. And I did something and somebody cried, and I'm sorry, because I didn't understand what the thing was. No, that was so beautiful. I went, I wasn't expecting that, and it's not, I cannot judge what I sound like. I just have to do it. And whoever needs to hear it will find it pleasing. And if they don't, then they won't hear it, and that's okay too. So I've been able to find a lot of things. What else? Hula. Our hula teacher, our hula Kumu hula was very strict with us. We were his first students so we were the guinea pigs. We got all of it. But in that learning, we actually got so much more, because we were exposed to him only. He gave us everything we wanted to accept from him, all the learning, so the more you wanted, he would give you. And so my whole thing was, you need help? I can do it. You want? I can do it. And then he started deciding he's going to travel. Like, okay, where are you going? I'll go. Everything's, I'll do it. And so I got to travel we traveled the continent, this one, both East Coast and West Coast, spent time in Pittsburgh, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Arizona, Oregon, California, Seattle, Taiwan, way up in Canada, Fort St. John, really cold, but really cool. And it was in Fort St. John that I learned from the children. I found that a lot of people do Hawaiian and they always want to explain it. But in Fort St. John, we did stuff for the kids and they got it. They knew it. It's like they didn't have to process it, they just knew it. And that's when I learned that you don't have to explain it. If you do it and they feel it, then that's good. So, yeah. Okay, is that it?
That's good.
Sorry, about the students from this weekend. I started watching them, and every time I watch them, while I'm watching them, I'm typing her an email about what I observed. It was extreme observation. Not judgment, extreme observation. Because to help June out, because when you're one teacher watching 8 students is very hard. But because I don't have to chant, all I have to do is watch them, I was able to see things that needed to be corrected or needed to be changed. And so my emails were a little bit long. And then our other hula sister, Pa'ahana, started watching with us. And what made me very happy was my observations were the same as hers. And so that made me feel a lot better that, I was picking up things and she was picking up the same thing. So it's a confirmation that we're on the same track. Now, the three of us, Pa'ahana, June, and I, have birthdays within a day. June and Pa'ahana are on June 6th. I'm on June 7th. So we're kind of in the same brain. And so I got to know her haumana online. And then when I came in on Wednesday, was straight to here. We came straight from the airport to rehearsal. And I got to see them in person and watch their rehearsal. And of course, after they left, and I, comments to June here, we got to do this, or what you did, what was doing well. And for the next couple of days, it was it was a deep learning for myself and I believe her students, because her haumana has a level, and it's not it's attainment mostly, but it's a level of commitment. Like, what do you want to give because of everything you've received? And that's what they were allowed to gain, because they have to commit to receiving and then continuing it. So it's not like, okay, I got the title, that's it, I can just run away. No, you're stuck for life. This is yours forever. You are now responsible to this person forever, because you have committed. And you don't have to keep practicing, but in your daily life, it's still, I see everything from I used to call, my truck used to be called, my license plate said Hula Eyes, because once I started hula, everything was different. I saw things differently from the perspective of a hula person. Like, oh, that would make a good lei. Oh, that might not make a good lei. But plants I don't like plants because I don't know plants. It's tree, I know tree. But how would they make a good lei? Or if we don't have this, would that be a good substitute? So everything became hula. Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, mahalo, Alva. We have 5 minutes or so, for questions. Any questions you might have to either Haunani or each of them could give a whole hour or so of talk. So you just got a little taste in this area. So any questions that anyone might have? Wait, I think Chaz has her hand open on.
I don't have a question. I have a compliment, because I heard June do hula in the Black Hills, and when I heard that, I wanted you to all know that she was taught well, because she hit me indigenously. And so thank you, ladies. This was so amazing. Thank you, June.
Oh, mahalo, Chaz, mahalo.
I wanted to thank the three of you. It was a wonderful talk. It opened up a whole new world for me. And Roshi, I do want to let you know that something you said resonated with me, that being constantly scolded by one's teacher does nothing to lessen the love one feels. So I hear you.
Absolutely. That's one thing I learned, right? He scolds us because he loves us. Any more questions?
I just wanted to remark to something that Kaipo mentioned, and that is, it suddenly becomes aware what it is you're going you're getting into and the stepping back. Like maybe you don't want to be doing this. At the time, I had several young children, and my world was so full, and commitment is not 30% committed or 50% committed, it's committed or not committed. And so when she brought that up, I was smiling. She said, oh, I stepped back quite a bit going, the window has been open, I'm not so sure about going through that door. But at the same time, we have this phrase called ko'ia, which means choice, no choice. All your steps and things you've encountered has led you here. Walk through the doorway, take the step.
A question.
You had mentioned looking at different plants and kind of considering what would and would not make a good lei. Are there are there any significance to specific plants when it comes to what goes into a specific lei or anything like that?
Okay, like in yesterday's ceremony, we had a line of, what kind of tree was that? Maple?
Maple.
Of different kinds of maple, white and red maple, yeah? Yeah, and in the Indigenous of America tribes, those are significant in spiritual practice. Oh, cedar.
Cedar.
Oh, sorry.
Western, yeah, Chaz helped me with that.
Thank you,
The
Chaz.
cedar.
The cedar. So that's in their practice. There is no lawa'e, which we use in Hawaii, that is available in enough quantity to demark the area that we were going to be dancing in. So we have to rely on what's available and that's appropriate. So we have to kind of adjust what we're doing, but still, we're still honoring the area because that's what they practice here. So we have to do that. So Lawa'e would be in Hawaii, and then we did the cedar, and that's how we do it. If we cannot find what's appropriate in Hawaii, then we have to find out from the land that we're at what would be appropriate as a substitution.
I was also quite amazed of what the Haunani chose to make the different components for their dress, and that I asked them about their plants, and I said, could I perhaps take some pictures or talk to you about your plants, because my sister is a Kumu Hula, and she would really be interested on how you got to make your choices about what you have. And it's the same with Lapa'au. When we live in a different area, or go to a different area, and we're unfamiliar with the plants, we must have a guide, someone who knows them, and we look for the attributes of the plant as compared to our own, the soil, the hills, the waters, and listen to the guide, how they evaluate it. I do look at more traditionals versus analyticals, because that's more in my tradition of how we name in Hawaii, how we name plants is not anywhere the same as how plants are done elsewhere. And in my area, I currently reside in Oregon. I've been there for a few years, but I have grown children with grandchildren, mo'opuna. So, I like to spend a little time with my mo'opuna so they know who I am before they get older, and then you're just the lady who Zooms them once in a while, So I had to go and talk to the native people of the area and ask them, please show me your plants. And some things they could show me, other things they cannot show me. And you have to honor that too, because we have the same traditions. And I listened to how they use it, why they use it. And I'm going to give a real simple explanation is because of nightshade. Do most of you know the nightshade family? Okay, we call that popolo. And we use it for medicine. But here, it has a lot of toxic parts. Neither is not good for animals or people, but birds love popolo. They love that plant, especially the seeds. And so what makes it different in Hawaii? It is different. It doesn't have that toxic component that the plants had to adapt to because of the creatures living in the area. And we didn't have them. So we don't have that in the plant. So it's a medicine plant for us, but it's not here. So that's just a simple example of not just stepping into a ground you know nothing about and think you can set up house in a place you know nothing about. You must first learn of the house you're in.
So just a follow-up question, if that's okay. So for Buddhism, there's lots of different areas, at least definitely within like the East, where it's interpreted differently. The same sort of tenets of it are taken with the sort of indigenous cultures and sort of shaped to the region. Would you say with Hula that it's similar? I'm sort of catching on with the sense of the how you would adapt to different areas with different plants and the significance for the indigenous people of that area, that you sort of it's sort of a framework that can be adapted outside of Hawaii and into different areas. Would you say that there's a sort of a there's a different kind of hula for different areas?
Well, I kind of, I brought hula here from my training, right? And so over the years, I have definitely developed my own flavor to the hula. So it would be interesting maybe to, for Alva to comment on my flavor of hula. But I definitely have, I think, the foundation, so.
June does have her own flavor, always has. That's just the way it's been. One of our hula sisters watched, I think, the last session with us, and she made a comment like, well, that sounds really different from us. And I took it, okay, so yeah, I didn't take it well. But what it is that we should never sound like everybody. We should have the same foundation. We should have the same meaning, but it becomes individual because we are not all the same. And it becomes stronger if you raise that level in yourself, so that you don't have to sound like your teacher, because you never will. Your teacher sounds like your teacher. I sound like me, which is different from June, but it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just who we are. And so she has adapted her teaching because of what's available here. So that's the June flavor. And then it's June herself, which is very different from me, even though we're very close in birthdays and in thinking and everything, but we're still different. But we still love each other, we still love our teacher and all of our hula family. So it depends, because if you're in the middle of nowhere, you're gonna have to figure out a way to do stuff. And a lot might have to be by intention rather than the physical, because the intention can carry a lot of the spiritual that you need into the area. So if you don't have sunshine, you have to intend that you can feel it, because the sun's up there. So if you intend to be there, then I feel that the intention brings what you need to the situation. So I think she's adapted really well to being in Chicago.
So do I. So I just want to extend my deep, grateful mahalos to you both for being with us, for being with me the past couple of days, and to everyone here who has come to share, to listen to us. Mahalo and blessings to everyone, that you may be strengthened through what you heard, and that it might help you in some way in your life. So mahalo, mahalo ke akua, mahalo.
Please, those who are able, join us in the community room for Kinship Hour. Thank you, Zoomers, for being here today. So lovely to see you online.
Aloha.
Have a wonderful Sunday.
It was lovely. Thank you.
Mahalo. Robin. Babette. Aloha, Babette. Leslie, Carlene, Joy, Michaela. Oh, Mary is here too from Detroit. Mary Hike. Okay. I know they zoom in, which is nice, because they can't be here personally. So it's like, this is great. So, yeah. So, you can just leave it right there. Right there. Yes, yes.